You don't deserve that vacation, my daughter Chloe lectured her fork, pointing accusingly across my own dining room table. Not after what you said to my mother-in-law, I slowly set my water glass down. The roast chicken I had spent 3 hours preparing sat between us, suddenly looking thoroughly unappetizing. At 68, I had hosted hundreds of Sunday dinners, but tonight felt uniquely suffocating. Sitting next to Chloe was her husband Mark, who kept his eyes glued to his plate, avoiding my gaze entirely. My crime. Setting a basic boundary. For the past year, I had budgeted and fully paid for a massive beachfront rental in the Outer Banks for our annual family trip. 3 days ago, Chloe cheerfully informed me she had invited Mark's mother, Brenda. I didn't mind the extra company until Brenda called me directly to announce she would be taking the oceanfront master suite because of her bad knees. When I calmly reminded Brenda I was paying for the rental and would keep the room I booked, she threw a massive tantrum. Now Chloe was delivering the verdict. You embarrassed Mark's family. Chloe's voice rose. Brenda is a guest. You need to call her, apologize, and offer her the master suite. Otherwise, this whole trip is just going to be incredibly awkward. I observed my daughter's sheer entitlement, the way she treated my home and my wallet as extensions of her own. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. Apologize for sleeping in the bed I paid for, I asked evenly. Yes, Chloe snapped, throwing her napkin down. It's about respect, Mom. You're acting completely selfish. I nodded slowly, absorbing the absurdity. I stood and began clearing the plates. Mom, what are you doing? Chloe demanded. Cleaning up, I replied, walking toward the sink. You should head home. I have some arrangements to make. The screen glowed brightly in the dim study. The beachfront rental details sat before me: 6 bedrooms, private pool, ocean access. The total cost, paid entirely from my savings, was just over $10,000. Chloe wanted me to apologize for existing in my own vacation. She believed my role was simply to fund their lifestyle and step aside quietly. I clicked the red "Cancel Reservation" button. A confirmation box popped up warning me about the small cancellation fee. I accepted it without a second thought. Within seconds, the booking vanished. $9,800 would be refunded to my credit card in 3 to 5 business days. I didn't stop there. I opened a new tab and searched for something entirely different. No family, no shared kitchens, no mother-in-law drama. Just peace. 30 minutes later, I had a confirmed reservation for a luxury spa resort nestled in the Red Rocks of Sedona, Arizona. First-class flight, private casita spa package. It cost half of what the beach house did, and it was entirely for me. The next morning, I poured myself a cup of dark roast coffee and picked up my phone. I typed a brief factual message to the family group chat that included Chloe, Mark, and my son Liam. Canceled the Outer Banks rental. You were right, Chloe. I don't deserve that vacation. I won't be attending. I set the phone face down on the granite counter and took a slow sip of coffee. The silence in my kitchen was absolute perfection. Less than 2 minutes later, my phone violently vibrated against the stone. I flipped it over. The screen lit up with a barrage of incoming texts. Chloe's response came first, in all caps, practically screaming through the screen. This is completely unfair, but... I watched the 3 little typing dots dance on the screen as she formulated the rest of her outrage. I took another calm sip of my coffee, genuinely curious to see how she would try to spin this new reality. The next message finally popped up. But if you want to be petty and stay home fine, just send Mark the booking transfer details so we can take over the reservation. Brenda already bought new resort wear. I smiled a small genuine smile and typed my reply. There is no booking to transfer. The reservation is permanently canceled. The money is returning to my account. The typing dots stopped. The fallout was predictably loud, though entirely one-sided. Over the next few hours, Chloe called me 6 times. Mark called twice. I ignored all of them, utilizing the quiet afternoon to begin packing my suitcase with hiking boots and lightweight linen clothes. Around 4 in the afternoon, I heard the familiar heavy clank of my front door unlocking. Heavy footsteps marched through the foyer. "Mom, Mom, where are you?" Chloe's voice echoed down the hallway, thick with panic and anger. I walked out of my bedroom, pausing at the top of the stairs. Chloe and Mark stood in my living room looking frantic. They had let themselves in using the spare key I gave them years ago for emergencies. "You can't do this!" Chloe yelled, looking up at me. Brenda is furious. She took time off work. We promised her a beachfront vacation. I didn't promise Brenda anything, I corrected, descending the stairs slowly. "You did. With my money. You're ruining everything over a stupid bedroom." Mark chimed in, his face flushed. "Just call them back and rebook it. We'll pay you back eventually." I walked past them into the kitchen and opened a drawer, retrieving my spare keychain. "No. The decision is final. Now please place your copy of my house key on the counter." Chloe blinked, genuinely taken aback. "What? Why?" "Because you just used it to storm into my home to demand money and vacations," I stated clearly. "That is not an emergency. The key, please." "I'm your daughter." Chloe gasped, clutching her purse tightly. "I'm not giving you my key. You're acting crazy. If you don't fix this trip, you're going to regret it." I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice or try to explain my feelings. I simply reached for my cell phone, resting on the counter, unlocked it, and dialed a number I had saved earlier that morning. "Hello, Advanced Lock and Security." I spoke clearly into the receiver, keeping my eyes fixed on my daughter. "Yes, this is Priscilla Walton on Elm Street. I need the front and back door locks rekeyed immediately. Someone has unauthorized access." Mark's jaw dropped. Chloe stepped back as if I had physically struck her. "Today would be wonderful," I finished, ending the call. I looked back at them. "You don't need to leave the key. It won't work in about an hour." The kitchen felt charged with electricity. Mark paced the floor in exasperation, while Chloe stared at me with wide, disbelieving eyes. She had never seen me operate like this. For years, I had been the peacemaker, the one who smoothed over rough edges with apologies and my checkbook. "You're really doing this?" Chloe's voice shook with a mixture of rage and fear. "Over a bedroom, you're locking your own daughter out." "I'm securing my property," I corrected, wiping down the already clean counter. "You lost key privileges when you forgot how to knock." Mark stopped pacing, puffing his chest out slightly. It was a classic intimidation tactic, one I found deeply unimpressive. "Listen to me, Priscilla," Mark warned, his tone dropping. "If you follow through with this, if you ruin this trip and lock us out, there will be consequences. You won't be seeing the kids for a long time. We won't bring them around someone so toxic." There it was, the ultimate trump card. They assumed my love for my 2 grandchildren, Leo and Mia, would force my surrender. But a relationship built on extortion wasn't a relationship. It was a hostage situation. I looked Mark dead in the eye. "I love Leo and Mia dearly, but I will not be blackmailed with my grandchildren to fund your lifestyle. If you choose to keep them away because I won't buy you a beach house, that is your moral failure, not mine." Chloe gasped. "You don't care about them. I care enough not to teach them that throwing tantrums gets you what you want," I replied smoothly. "The locksmith will be here shortly. It's time for you to leave." They stood frozen, waiting for me to crack. When I simply crossed my arms, reality finally set in. "Let's go," Mark muttered, grabbing Chloe's arm. They stormed out, slamming the front door hard enough to rattle the picture frames. The new locks clicked with a satisfying sound. The locksmith handed me 2 fresh keys and departed. I locked the deadbolt, feeling a profound sense of security wash over me. As I walked to the kitchen, my phone rang. It was my son, Liam, a pragmatic engineer who rarely involved himself in family drama. "Mom, what is happening?" he asked, sounding amused. "Chloe just called my wife in hysterics about you canceling the Outer Banks trip and changing your locks." "That's an accurate summary," I confirmed, pulling a suitcase from the hall closet. Liam chuckled. "Good for you. But do you know why Chloe is actually freaking out? Mark's brother let it slip. Chloe and Mark are trying to buy a massive house they can't afford. They promised Brenda a luxury, all-expenses-paid vacation to butter her up, so she'd loan them $50,000 for the down payment." The missing puzzle piece snapped into place. It was never about Brenda's bad knees. It was a transactional manipulation. I was unknowingly funding the bait. "I see," I murmured, a cold wave of clarity washing over me. "Well, I'm perfectly fine, Liam. In fact, I have a flight to Sedona tomorrow." Just me and a lot of silence. The airport was bustling with early morning energy, a chaotic symphony of rolling luggage and rushed announcements. I navigated through security with practiced ease, feeling an unfamiliar lightness in my step. Nobody was asking me to carry their bags. Nobody was complaining about the line. I settled into my spacious first-class seat, accepting a complimentary glass of sparkling water from the flight attendant. Just as the aircraft doors closed, my phone vibrated. It was a text from an unknown number, but the venom in the words gave the sender's identity away instantly. "Priscilla. This is Brenda. I cannot believe how selfish you are being. Mark and Chloe are devastated. I already requested the time off work. You need to reimburse me for my new luggage and clothes immediately. This is completely unacceptable." I stared at the screen, marveling at the sheer audacity. They truly believed I was an ATM with a pulse. I didn't type a response. I simply tapped the information icon, scrolled down, and selected Block Caller. The plane taxied down the runway and lifted into the clouds, leaving the drama thousands of feet below. By mid-afternoon, I was standing on the private balcony of my casita in Sedona. The view was breathtaking, massive, fiery red rock formations, stretching up into a brilliant blue sky. The air smelled of pine and warm earth. I unpacked, slowly placing my clothes in the cedar-lined drawers. No one was demanding dinner. No one was arguing over the remote control. I walked out to the main resort area and settled into a lounge chair by the infinity pool. The water reflected the desert landscape perfectly. I asked the attendant to take a quick photo of me sitting by the water, the red rocks towering majestically in the background. I opened my social media app. I rarely posted, usually just leaving positive comments on pictures of the grandchildren. I uploaded the photo with a simple factual caption: "Sometimes the best company you can keep is your own. Enjoying a beautiful, peaceful week in Sedona." I hit publish, turned my phone on Do Not Disturb, and closed my eyes against the warm Arizona sun. The trap was set, though I hadn't planned it as a trap. I was simply living my life out loud exactly as I intended to from now on. I spent my second day in Sedona, wrapped in a plush robe, transitioning seamlessly from a hot stone massage to a eucalyptus steam room. My muscles, tense from years of carrying other people's emotional baggage, finally began to unwind. It wasn't until late evening, after enjoying a quiet dinner of pan-seared trout and a crisp Chardonnay, that I finally turned off Do Not Disturb on my phone. The notification screen flooded instantly. My photo had garnered dozens of likes and comments from friends and extended family. Liam had commented, "Looks amazing. Mom, enjoy the piece." But it was the private messages from Chloe that told the real story. Her tone had shifted drastically over the past 24 hours, evolving from furious to panicked and finally to desperate. Mom, where are you? Are you really on vacation by yourself? Sent yesterday at 4 p.m. Mom, please answer. Brenda saw your post. She's screaming at Mark. She figured out we didn't pay for the Outer Banks house. Sent today at 9 a.m. Mom, please. Brenda is refusing to help us with the house down payment because we lied to her. We need that money to close on the house next week. Sent today at 1 p.m. And the most recent message sent just an hour ago. Mom, I'm begging you. Can you just wire us $10,000? We'll tell Brenda it was a misunderstanding and book a quick trip to Florida. Just to save the down payment loan. Please. I read the messages twice, ensuring I fully comprehended the absolute mess they had created for themselves. Chloe wasn't apologizing for her behavior. She was simply trying to recruit me to fix a new crisis. She wanted my money to patch a hole in a lie she had told her mother-in-law. I sat down on the edge of my bed, looking out the large window at the starlit desert sky. I felt no guilt. I felt no urge to rescue her. I opened the text thread. I didn't write a paragraph explaining my feelings. I didn't offer advice on financial management or honesty. I typed a single word and pressed send. No. The response was almost instantaneous. My phone rang, displaying Chloe's name. I let it ring twice before answering, keeping my voice neutral. Hello, Chloe? You can't just say no, she sobbed into the receiver. It wasn't a sad cry. It was the frustrated wail of someone who had just hit a brick wall at full speed. We are going to lose the house. Mom. The sellers won't extend the closing date. Brenda pulled the loan completely. She said she doesn't trust us. Brenda is making a wise financial decision, I replied calmly. You lied to her about paying for a vacation to manipulate her into giving you money. We were trying to secure our future, Chloe snapped back defensive instantly. And you're over there in Sedona living it up while your grandchildren are about to be homeless? You are not homeless, Chloe. You currently rent a very nice townhouse. I corrected her, refusing to let her catastrophize the situation. You simply cannot afford to buy a luxury home right now. There is a difference. Mark is furious with you. She threatened, reverting to her usual tactics. Mark's emotions are not my responsibility, I stated. Neither is your down payment. I suggest you call the realtor and cancel the contract. It will be an expensive lesson, but a necessary one. How can you be so cold? She demanded. I am not cold. I am clear, I answered. For years, I have subsidized your lifestyle at the expense of my own peace. That arrangement ended on Sunday. I am enjoying my vacation, Chloe. Do not call me again asking for money. I will not answer. Mom, wait. I ended the call. I didn't block her number. I wanted her to have a line of communication if there was a genuine emergency with the children, but I muted her notifications. I placed the phone on the nightstand, turned off the bedside lamp, and laid back against the premium hotel pillows. I didn't lie awake stressing over her financial ruin. I had raised her, provided for her, and educated her. The consequences she was facing were entirely of her own making. I closed my eyes and fell into the deepest, most restful sleep I had experienced in decades. I spent the rest of my week in Sedona, hiking the Red Rock trails, reading entire books by the pool, and enjoying the sheer novelty of making decisions solely for myself. On my final evening, while I was packing my suitcase to return home, my phone chimed with a message from Liam. Hey, Mom. Just a heads up. Chloe and Mark lost the house contract. They lost their earnest money too. Mark got into a massive screaming match with Brenda, and they aren't speaking. I read the message, feeling a brief flicker of pity that was quickly extinguished by logic. Thank you for the update, Liam. I'm flying home tomorrow. 5 minutes later, an email popped up on my phone. It was from Chloe. Having realized her texts were being ignored, she resorted to formal communication. Mom, we lost the house. Our lease on the townhouse is up in 2 months, and we didn't renew it because we thought we were buying. Rents have gone up too much everywhere else. We need to move into your basement for the next year while we save up again. Mark says it's the least you can do since you cost us the down payment. I stared at the email, letting out a short, incredulous laugh. They still fundamentally misunderstood the situation. They still believed I owed them my space, my resources, and my peace. I sat down at the small desk in the casita, opened my laptop, and typed my reply. Chloe, I did not cost you your down payment. Your deceit did. My basement is not available for you, Mark, or the children to live in. I will not subject my home to the disrespect and entitlement you both displayed last week. You have 2 months to find a new apartment. You both have good jobs. You will figure it out. If you wish to visit, you may call and ask if it is a convenient time. If Mark continues to blame me for his mistakes, he is not welcome in my home. Love, Mom. I hit send, closed the laptop, and slid it into my carry-on bag. The boundary was set in concrete. There was no room for interpretation, no opening for negotiation. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of her reaction. I arrived home on a crisp Tuesday afternoon. The familiar sight of my house usually brought a wave of anxiety, a mental checklist of chores to do for everyone else. Today, it simply looked like a sanctuary. I slid my new key into the lock. It turned smoothly, the heavy deadbolt sliding back with a solid clank. I stepped inside, breathing in the quiet air of my own domain. 2 weeks passed. True to my word, I didn't reach out to Chloe. I learned through Liam that she and Mark had frantically signed a lease on a smaller apartment further out of town. They were unhappy, but they had a roof over their heads, funded by their own paychecks. On a bright Saturday morning, Liam pulled into my driveway with his wife and my other 2 grandchildren. They walked up to the front porch and knocked on the door. I opened it, greeted by eager hugs and bright smiles. "We brought bagels, Mom," Liam said, holding up a paper bag. "And we promise not to demand the master bedroom." I laughed, ushering them inside. The house filled with the joyful noise of children who understood the concept of please and thank you. We spent the morning eating breakfast, playing board games, and making plans for a modest, drama-free camping trip later in the summer. Later that afternoon, after Liam and his family had left, I found myself standing in the kitchen, wiping down the counters. My phone vibrated on the island. A text from Chloe. "Leo misses you. Can we bring the kids over for an hour tomorrow? Just the kids. Mark is staying home." I looked at the message. It was a small concession, a tiny white flag waving from across the battlefield of her own making. She was testing the waters, learning to operate within the fences I had finally built. I picked up the phone. "Tomorrow at 3 p.m. works well. I will have cookies ready." I set the phone down and looked around my quiet, secure home. I hadn't needed to hire a lawyer, file a lawsuit, or engage in a screaming match to get my life back. I simply needed to stop handing over my keys, both literal and metaphorical. I walked into my study, sat down at my laptop, and began browsing vacation rentals in Italy. For one,